And we're live. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to a virtually connecting session coming to you from Wearables. My name is AK. I'm coming to you from UMass Boston, representing Virtually Connecting. And we're going to go to the room for a quick round of introductions and then online. Take it away.
Okay, I'll start. I'm Rebecca Hogue. I am a co-director of Virtually Connecting. And I'm on site here in Stanford, which is it's not a dreary day today, actually. Cloudy, which is interesting. Who are you?
Matt Crossland, Learning Innovation Coordinator with the UT Arlington Link Lab.
George Siemens, I'm with Link Lab as well, and obviously in the same room, which means I'm in Stanford also.
All right, so we'll go in order that I see people in my list. Brittany, Chinzia, Helen, Lisa, Maha, Nadine.
Hi, I'm Brittany Brown O'Donnell. I'm a grad student at Virginia Tech in Instructional Design and Technology. I got to participate in the conversation last night, and I'm looking forward to this one, and still have my wearable on, so excited to hear what you guys have today.
Okay, my turn, I guess. I'm Cinzia, and I work as learning technologist at the University of Manchester in the UK. And I am also completing my master dissertation at the Master in Digital Education at the University of Edinburgh as a distance student.
And hi, I'm Helen DeWard from Central Ontario, just heading home from a session in Toronto, and I'm very excited to be joining again. I hosted last night, and looking forward to hearing what's been going on today.
And I am Lisa Hammersham, and I'm from just outside of Chicago, and I'm a graphic designer and also doctoral student at Athabasca University. So. And I'm wearing no wearables, but
you're wearing a headset and you're wearing clothes.
Oh yes, yeah, that's true. I am. Yeah, I'm wearing.
They're just not collecting data on you. That's all.
They're collecting other things. Yeah.
Data from a certain point of view, I guess.
I'm Maha Bali. I'm in Cairo, and I'm the co-director of Virtually Connecting. It's good to see you guys.
Hi everyone, I'm Nadine Abdelmak. I'm also from Cairo. I work with Maha at the Center for Learning and Teaching, and I'm also currently pursuing my master's in educational leadership. Very happy to be here. Very nice to meet you guys.
All right, room. So what do you see? What have you seen today? What piqued your interest?
What's of interest today?
I
I missed the workshop this morning, so I'm quiet on that one.
We had a good workshop, some good discussions. I was in a group that was discussing ethics, ethical issues. I think that it's good that we're kind of digging through the different issues and questions about who owns the data, who is collecting it, why are they collecting it, what are they using it for. We definitely want to have those conversations and make sure that they're a part of this this entire area, whatever you want to call it, as it goes forward. And so those good to see that.
Yeah, I think seeing some of the range of wearables. One of the talks from colleagues here at UTA that looks at the relationship between self-control and academic performance, life satisfaction, and being able to assess things like self-control through heart rate variability. So this learned certainly one of the studies that I thought was nicely designed. There's, and then seeing just the range of people involved. We had the Army Research Lab that was here as well. They tackled some of the challenges that they're looking at from a cybersecurity end. We also had a European colleague that was presenting, I guess, sort of a maker-ish type of approach and the way that wearables might contribute to those kinds of things as well. So there's been interesting focus on bridging and pulling together multiple data sources from different devices that get at different physiological states.
I really liked I think it was the Army guy, the cybersecurity presentation, where they were wearing these badges that collected information about like where they were physically in the room and how much they spoke and that kind of stuff. And then they took that and correlated that with who won the competition, to see the characteristics of different people. So it's really neat to sort of mix sort of the data collection with the observation.
Yeah, and then it's interesting. I mean, MIT has two initiatives this one was by Pentland. So Pentland initially started with some of the sociometric devices, and he did it under, he has this concept called social physics. And his idea is that we can monitor and map social interactions and engagement the same way that we can monitor and map engagement or physical concepts. I think that's overstating it, but nonetheless, so with the sociometric badges, that was one of the things that came out of there. They're not terribly sophisticated though, they're clunky. It was interesting to see they're actually at UTA. So there's about 70 badges that Lauren has, so we'll try and connect with her. And then the other one is E4s, which are the devices that we've been using. They're the only clinical grade wearables that we've come across. They're very pricey, but they do get a range of different data sets. That also came out of MIT, but that was out of Picard's lab. So it's interesting just to see how all the talk of wearables, and there's not a heck of a lot of innovation, really. I mean, you got a wrist device, you got a chest strap, you've got like a Spire for breath patterns, and I mean, it's not overwhelmingly sophisticated yet.
I think in some ways, though, the clunky badges are really good in that you're, like, as the person being monitored, I'm aware that I'm being monitored.
I don't know. What about rappers? How would you know if they were wearing one of those badges? Do you actually know?
No, yeah. Well, like again, if they're clunky,
maybe like, yo.
The clunky sort of gives you the sense of, hey, I'm being monitored.
Let's try to get at is like rapper jewelry.
A rapper I totally missed.
Got a toaster, and it's like, is that a wearable? No,
is that a wearable? Yeah.
It's my toaster. I sometimes like my bread in the middle of the day. Okay, anyway, as we were.
All right, questions from the.
Well, I just connected with the conversation from last night where we were talking about, measuring engagement and how can you truly measure engagement and student engagement just from one standard measure like heart rate or perspiration or eye gaze, or how do you truly measure engagement?
Well, I guess first of all, you probably have to define what engagement means. Our keynote yesterday, Sydney DeMello out of Notre Dame, really addressed that engagement and affect. And these are words that we use that maybe aren't terribly precise. And that's one of the difficulties with it. I think it's worth emphasizing, this is more of an epistemological question, right? Why is our eye, like our ability to see someone's facial expression, why do we trust that more than we trust psychophysiological metrics such as heart rate and skin conductance and so on? I think it's largely because we are closer and we have more of an experiential relationship with our eyes, and because we've seen and observed it, but we trust that. But it's not very quantified, even though it's quite universally understood. Like if you get a group of people, pictures of different faces from around the world, they'll be able to say sad, angry, happy, whatever else, Trump. And so when you have, when you have those kinds of things come up, it doesn't take long, and so we trust our observational things as a source of knowledge. I don't see why we don't trust our instruments as well. I know there's something dehumanizing about it. There's something that says, how is engagement measured by heart rates and changes in heart rate patterns and changes in electrodermal skin conditions? I would say that is an equally valid way of measuring engagement once you've defined what it actually is. And that's one of the reasons, like, I will be honest here, so excuse me for just being an idiot, but like most educational research is shit. So I was at a conference at Santa Fe Institute last week, and there was about 40, 50 people there. And that was my exact statement. I said, most research is shit in education. And most research is irrelevant in education, and then we sit here and whine that we're marginalized. Well, no kidding. We're marginalized because we're not doing important work, we're not asking important questions, or when we're asking important questions, we're not tackling them in a methodologically rigorous way that resonates with the ways and the things that society values. Now, you might say, well, I don't value those things society values, and I'm like, okay, that's perfectly acceptable, but then you can't complain if you're not getting the impact that you want because you're speaking a different language. That's a non-opinion view.
Can I jump in here? Because I think a lot of educational research is irrelevant because it's done by people who are researchers and not educators. And so it's just done completely from a different point of view, and then it's not relevant to the teachers in the end.
Or people that have specialties in other fields and actually don't understand education. I see that in medical education.
Oh, that's even worse. Yes, that's even worse.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's even worse than the educational researchers.
Have ignored the last.
And a lot of the policymakers, that's also a lot of the policymakers, and so they don't understand even. So I mean, I don't think George and I even share an epistemological viewpoint, but I think policymakers are on a totally different other planet than any of us. I think George tries to talk to them, which is very difficult. But back to what you were saying earlier about measuring engagement and why do we trust our eyes versus something else. And I was just wondering, I have a friend of mine who's involved in something called Affectiva, which does, it's a tool that tries to measure emotions or something through your interaction with the computer. Comfortable with that idea, but I was just wondering if it's like I was wondering what kind of research is done around those things, and is it something that's a neural network type of thing that learns, like you give it a lot of data and it tries to figure out by us decide ahead of time what we think needs to be measured. And then the other thing is, but in the end, what are you going to call engagement anyway? Like whatever this thing measures, how are you going to know if it implies engagement or if it doesn't? That's the thing. It's not the same as happy, sad, angry, right? It's much more complicated maybe than that. She just came in a little bit late. Did I say your name right? Can you just introduce yourself very quickly and then mute?
Yourself. Introduce yourself.
I'm not sure if this is working. I don't know if you folks can hear. Yeah, okay. So I'm Therese from Leicester, and I've been involved in some of this apparently horrendous educational research with Jilly Selman and Grania Canole. But, you know, so I mean, I agree with what I've heard so far, so yeah. Yeah, I just kind of want to see where people's minds are and where we think things are headed.
I really liked the idea of looking at the correlation between heart rate variability and what's the word I'm looking for? Independence. Wasn't this the word she used?
Self-control, self-regulation.
Yeah, self-regulation, I guess. The idea that if you can be an independent person early, an independent learner, you can control distractions early on in your life, that will be a better indicator later on. But the fact that there's actually a relationship between that and heart rate variability was particularly interesting.
Yeah, and so for those of you that didn't catch that session, basically what Catherine focused on is, so Catherine and James are researchers in Link Lab, and they're doing a study at a museum where they take students from the age as young as 7 up to till they're nearly dead. And then what they do is they come in and you have a task. So you've got a series of laptops set up. It's based on the NIH toolkit out of the US. And then so self-regulation has proven to have an impact on a large number of factors in life. So academic success, your financial wellness, your quality of life and relationships are all contributing or at least influenced by your ability to self-regulate. And so what they do is you get a group of students and you have, it's sort of a variation of the Stroop test, you know, if the word blue is written in red. And so you're put into this period, so there's this period where you briefly have to think, what am I supposed to do? And so you've got a center button here that you put your finger on, and then the screen pops up, and then it says, you know, you're either looking for a shape or a color, and it mixes them up. It'll tell you what you're looking for, and then there's this period of self-regulation before you hit, which is your processing time. And so that's the study. And the big thing with heart rate variability is that it's not your heart rate, it's your changes in your heart rate, or what they call your interbeat indicators. And so it's important to note, so in this case, the study says if you have higher heart rate variability, better capability for self-control, even though that varied by age as well. There's different age groups where you have different capabilities for self-control. So what's interesting there is with any research that we do, there's a big so what factor. Like if we know that if I'm person X, this is the outcome, that means nothing to me unless there's something we can do. Like, what do you do now? So let's say I've got crap heart rate variability. Let's say I really, really like punching people in the face and I have a lot of issues with self-control. Well, that's not going to make me well suited for society. So there has to be ways for me to improve those things that I don't possess. So if my self-regulation sucks, how do I change that? And that's, I think, a big problem educationally is we assume, and this is one of the things that a group of us that are very involved in some of the conversations, I imagine a lot of folks in Virtually Connecting, a lot of people I follow on Twitter as well, we seem to think we're the norm, but we're not. That most people don't function this way. And so then we get upset that others don't follow. But if we understand that there are psychophysiological basis for the actions that we make, then we have to say, well, we can't just tell students have choice, be autonomous, be free. We actually have to build scaffolding structures, mediating factors such as helping them to practice whatever activity. In this case, with the heart rate variability, we're looking at things like mindfulness and self-control practices. Yoga and other activities could contribute to that as well. By the way, Link is doing a yoga MOOC on edX that'll be starting, I think, in May of next year. So you might want to keep an eye out for that.
So can we change heart rate variability?
Well, that's the point.
Yeah.
Like you can. It's through contemplative practices, and this is something that quite often you look through traditional practices. You know, almost all religions have had a focus on meditation, for example. Meditation, and this is something that Mathieu Ricard, who has written a lot of work on, or done a lot of work on happiness and happiness factors. Richie Davidson at the University of Wisconsin had Mathieu Ricard down and did, he did fMRI, he didn't use an EEG, but sort of checked his brainwave functioning, and his brain literally functioned differently than a regular human being who hasn't meditated, who hasn't had a life of contemplative practice. So yeah, you can change that, just like people who deal with addictions. You might have a natural impulse, but there are exercises, contemplative practices that we can utilize to change that. The problem is our society does not value contemplative practices much at all. We instead value going faster. And one of the best stories I heard on this while I'm talking is that they had a group of, I imagine most people are probably familiar with the Good Samaritan parable. But so they had a group of individuals that they had to, at a college, to do a lecture on this particular topic. And so they had them in one building where they were preparing, and then a second building where they're going to do their talk. Then they took the individuals and they said, all right, you guys got to go, but you have no time. Like, you got to rush over there waiting for you. And so and then they staged something that meant somebody needed help. The people who were rushed for time walked right past that person in order to give their non-ironic lecture on the Good Samaritan. So that, and then they took and then they took the second group and they told them, you got to go, no rush, you can go over. So they walked over, they saw the situation, intervened and helped. So I'm trying to get at with that particular story is that our pace of life influences our capability to be moral people. And that's something that contemplative science sort of awakens in us, or contemplative practices, because it allows us to get out of the stream of the urgent and start to sit at a plane of important things, which are disconnected from time and disconnected sometimes even from our emotions.
That's interesting.
Okay, that was deep.
Everyone's trying to figure out, that's my boss without getting fired.
And then
I need a couple of days to respond to that one.
And then the role that wearables can have in self-regulating, self-monitoring, and it's that realization of controlling the actions of my body based on the feedback I'm getting from my wearable.
I mean, wearables can. I think it's like I have a lot of confidence in wearables, but I also know we'll use them wrong, right? Like humanity as a species has the ability to do the wrong things very consistently. And so I think we're going to use them for students in a classroom to monitor their engagement, which is a dumb idea. I think wearables are good for research. They're not good for an in-practice tool. I also think we're going to see people use different wearables for controlling and nudging purposes. I'm quite uncomfortable with nudging because it's sort of a very manipulative strategy, and yet nudging is the language of almost all analytics conversations. Meaning you go into a store to shop and your phone knows what you like and it'll nudge you to a higher profit margin item. And we'll do the same thing with our classrooms. So I'm very confident that we'll fuck it up.
Although, you know, there was a good example that Victor Lee gave yesterday about using Fitbits in the classroom, where the students actually had access to the data and were creating the experiments. So the students were asking things like, how does my heart rate change when I run up and down the hill? And so they would pose the question, and the Fitbit data would then be used from their classroom Fitbits to answer the question or help them answer the question. And I thought that was a pretty unique use of that technology. I thought that was interesting. Glad to hear that some people are actually letting the students have access to their data. Not that we don't all share sort of the same moral principles on this one.
No, did you guys see Clinton Lalonde's blog post on that? On a student at their university? I think it was Clinton Lalonde, where a student at their university asked for access to their data, and it took them more than 6 weeks, I think, to get it, because it turned out to be that it's in the Canadian law or the British Columbia law or whatever, and it wasn't actually easy to do.
Yeah, and there's a number of issues, and it's not necessarily that the university doesn't want to share, even though that likely is the case, but that's not the only problem. It's like the way that log data is stored and the way that different systems on campus store those data profiles. Let's say, look, at a minimum university, I'm going to, let's say I go to UTA. I'm going to apply, it's going to my data, which was often used for training and developing models and sensitizing models. That data is going to sit in the student information system. Then there's going to be a second system, which will include, let's say, a learning management system. Those two systems on a campus likely won't talk to each other. Then you have any use of social media, even if it's a campus or a service that the campus offers, that likely won't be connected to the learning management system or the student information system. Then you add in any use of university help resources. Some people have called them student success systems now, but these are basically, it's using a enterprise relationship management software to sort of like a CRM, like a customer relationship management software that companies use to track interactions, which means every touch point where the student gets logged. That system, which might include help-seeking behavior, and it might include interventions plan, that won't talk to any of the other systems. So the problem around data access is much more technological than I think it's that the university has an issue with it. The university isn't aware enough to know that they should have an issue with it. But once we actually have the data in a shared format that people could get a hold of and look at and download, then that's what's going to be more relevant. And then now when you have systems like Civitas, which is very prominent on campuses, and disclaimer, I'm on their board of advisors, but when you have a company like Civitas on campus, they do another level of analysis that, again, it's aggregate analyzed data that it pulls from a number of systems, and you may not have access to your predictive model that says, hey, George, the system thinks you're kind of dumb and you're not going to pass stats. Those are the kinds of challenges that I think we face.
Well, and do students have access to they understand how the algorithm works?
No, of course not.
So this is one of the things that drives me crazy about a lot of this stuff, is that they usually have a hard-coded approach to deciding how much weight each of these different variables have. It's not that it's a system that's learned this on its own. It's someone put those things in. Either the teachers who get to see this, if they ever get to see it, nor the administrators, nor the students. No.
No, but that's because we lost the openness war. We won the openness battle. We got open content and we got open education resources. but we got closed interventions, closed predictive models. And this is something we wrote a paper about 5 years ago, I think, called Open Learning Analytics. And it was our vision for saying that we need to have our analytics open, because and Pearson gets this. Pearson they give away content for free now because they sell the interactive exercises, the MATLabs, they sell the teacher notes, they sell the access keys, if you will, to online testing and so on. But that's just the first stage. That's what they're doing now. In the long run, though, and this is why in the next couple of years, whatever you have for an LMS as an institution, you will have for the rest of your life until you die. And the reason is that once your algorithms for student predictive models and intervention support become integrated with your learning management system, you now have an enterprise system. Universities and businesses, they change their ERPs once every 50 years because it is an absolutely horrible experience. So the algorithms now is the economic value point that's going to keep you secure and connected to that particular organization. So let's give you an example. Like Athabasca University hasn't been as aggressive on learning analytics as they could have because they have a good chunk of learning data, but they haven't integrated and brought in organizations like Civitas to make sense of that data. Once you have data, you have this longitudinal effect, which means now if you move to a new platform that codes and runs data differently, you're going to lose a lot of your legacy data, and that's going to mess up your models. It's going to mess up how you interact with students, and the list goes on. So the only thing that makes sense to me in this kind of world is a learning analytics architecture that you treat like WordPress, where you can activate a social network analysis module, where you can activate a coherence of text module, where you can activate a growth of sophisticated conceptual understanding module, and the list goes on. But that's what we proposed with the Open Learning Analytics paper. And recently, I'd say about the last 6-7 months, there's been a lot more interest in that topic, potentially from funders and other agencies as well. But again, we're way behind, and that's part of the problem educationally is we don't respond quickly. We're the place where we discuss safety pins. Yeah. And just complexify everything to the point where it's incomprehensibly useless.
I was explaining to George what the safety pins were this morning and why it was depressing to me that we're already fighting over whether a safety pin is okay or not in our society. So that's what I was referenced to.
Well, as I get older, I guarantee you I'm going to wear cloth adult diapers. I'm not going to wear Depends. I'm always going to have like extra safety pins on. So it'll be either like, if your cloth adult diaper is leaking, here's your safety pin. Or if you feel triggered, I'm your safety guy. Yeah. Who doesn't want to hug a guy that's wearing cloth adult diapers? Everybody wants to hug guys like that.
To bring us back from adult diapers, one of the things that I've noticed, especially from people who don't do distance ed, is this, I don't know, I'd call it their feeling that students aren't engaged because they can't see them or they can't get the feel of the room. And they have this aversion to distance ed and all forms because they can't see the students. And I'm thinking, well, we have a number of people in our societies that are blind or hard of seeing? No, that's hard of hearing. Sorry. Who can't see well, but they function perfectly well in our society. And we need to move beyond that. And I'm thinking that a lot of the wearables and the analytics also is not that great because we are predisposed to think of engagement in certain ways and we're not really thinking outside the box. So the question is, what do we do with the data that we collect in an intelligent fashion? And how do we prevent spurious correlations? How do we train people to, for lack of a better term, hone their BS filters?
It's been interesting. I think most academics, most educators who have a strong qualitative bias do so because they're scared of quantitative approaches. They don't understand statistical analysis. They don't understand a lot of these tools or approaches.
No.
Yeah,
Don't make that claim. There's no evidence. There's no evidence behind that claim. I'm a computer scientist. I took statistics courses. I can't stand.
But let me just finish my argument here on why that bias exists. And because again, we're talking about the limitations of educational research. So we are, whether we like it or not, we are in a digital world, and a digital world is a quantified world. We can't, as educators, for the last 10 years, many of us have said, you've got to get into digital environments. You've got to build your digital profile. The moment you tell someone you've got to build your digital profile, you're sneaking in the back door. You've got to be quantified, because you will be quantified. And so I think we've focused on building the digital literacy of our students, but we haven't paid attention to focusing on their quantitative literacy. I'm not trying to say that qualitative research isn't consequential. What I'm saying is each era has a component that is a match and a mismatch. And right now, I would argue, and this is intentionally controversial, that qualitative research is more critical than ever, but it's fundamentally mismatched to the needs and the values that we have as our society today. As you were, Maha, take it away. You're muted, so I'm not sure if you're arguing with me.
Hangouts actually kicked me out in the middle of what you were doing, and that's a very qualitative thing.
Don't take it personally. I just can't take disagreement. We're now in a Trump era. We take no disagreement with people we disagree with. But I let you back in because I'm also a very nice person. I'm a nice Trump.
Oh, wait, you own the Google? Like, you control the Google? Because we have a lot of complaints about this. So I'll listen to this later, and then we can fight on our blogs, and then people will think there's something wrong, and I have to tell them that we're friends, but we're just having an argument. I want to give space for other people to talk, but just don't trash qualitative people.
I'm not trashing qualitative. I'm just going to say, look at the implications of our actions for the last decade. Where, and by our, I mean probably all of us here who fostered people or encouraged people to get involved in digital environments. We've encouraged people to set up a blog. We've encouraged people to get involved with social media and Web 2.0 prior to that. The idea that we were just talking about universities that don't have online programs, we think, well, they should have online programs. But don't forget, when you say they should have online programs, there's an and that's involved. So the moment you bring in digital and technology, there's an immediate and that says they should have online programs, and that will generate data that will be used to analyze them. Universities should have distance education programs that make sense, use of Moodle or WordPress or whatever, and that's going to give them a digital profile that they won't be able to control, and someone else will try to monetize. So I guess what I'm trying to get at with that argument was that and is something that those of us who have thought of the potential for digital technologies to enable people to be self-controlled and self-actualized also bring in an unintended background, which is that big old data impact.
I'm getting mindful of the time. We've got a couple minutes and then we're going to have to go. Yeah. Although I really liked your comments about the fact that we need to teach more about the
coffee delivery.
Oh, this coffee just got here. Quantification.
It's up.
Aspects with our students, because we teach them how to get online, but we don't teach them what the statistics behind it mean. Like, even just, you teach them how to blog, but you don't teach them what a hit count means when they're looking at the stats associated with their own blogs, right? So like, even that basic understanding, what do my blog statistics mean is not something we teach. At least I've never taught it, and I think that that's sort of an interesting thing to think about.
I still look at my blog statistics because they're garbage, but that's.
I think that's a big thing. Just because you can quantify something doesn't mean that there's any value there. I remember this a couple of years ago. I was in Italy for an event. It's probably about 6 or 7 years, and then it was a business event, and they had all of these graphs up on the wall, which was from the conference registration, and there was all these lovely graphs about the ways that people were connected. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, what am I going to do differently? Oh, I'm not connected to that blue dot. where's Mr. Blue Dot so I can be connected? Like the important implications, I think, from quantitative research is quantitative, or let's say data-centric approach, is that it can tell us what exists. Qualitative research can tell us why it exists the way it exists, and interventions such as, again, we've been talking mindfulness, other practice, but interventions are what allows us to alter the nature of what exists. And so both, and I think that's one of the challenges. I mean, you know, from a data-centric view, even qualitative research is now much more quantitative than it was even a decade ago, just in terms of the ease of coding and whatever else. But I think it's just the reality. There is a sense, the greater the digitization, the greater we get down toward a fully quantitative future. That's my non-controversial statement for the day.
Any last questions or comments, ideas, thoughts from the room before we sign off? Going once, going twice.
I'll just say we're overwhelmed. And there'll probably be lots of Twitter following this. This was quite the action-packed conversation.
Cool.
Full of controversy. And all diapers.
We're all aging.
All right, so with that, I don't want adult diapers to be the last thing said on this recorded podcast. So thank you all for joining.
Diapers,
Trump. No, it's good.
AK for president 2020.
Thanks, guys. I'm jumping out. We gotta get to the room. I can figure out how to hang out. All right, bye.